So here we are at the YouTube studio, and we're going to do a live stream with David Cox, and he's going to tell us all about how to use Mac voice control when you can't use your hands. I found David because I was searching online looking for tutorials on this, and I thought his was really the best. So I'm going to turn things over to David. He can tell us about his background, and then basically we're going to launch into a live stream. If you have questions, be sure to join in the chat, and I'll see if I can ask David. But anyway, welcome, David. Happy to see you. Happy that you're here. And
thank you, Deborah. It's great to be here.
Yes. And so you can tell us whatever you want about your background, and then we'll go into whatever you want to teach us about using voice control for the Mac.
Sure. So my name, again, is David Cox. I've been making YouTube videos for almost 14 years now. I calculate that the total number is somewhere around 700-ish. A lot have been taken offline over the years as they've become irrelevant. But one of the things that's always been important to me is to be inclusive, especially to people who can really benefit from technology. And by that, I mean the accessibility crowd. And so over the years, yes, I've talked about some of the popular topics, but I've also given a lot of energy into creating video content that, by my own admission, I know is not going to get a lot of views, but I know that the people that need it will dramatically benefit from the information in this video. And so as technology has evolved, there have become these workflows where you can do things much more easily with less of your hands. And there's a couple of different tricks, actually. And so if it's okay with you, there's actually three I would really love to go over today. The big one being, of course, voice control, which is just such an incredible game changer. Over the years, I've had a few clients of mine who've been diagnosed with ALS over the years. And of course, with ALS, you lose motor control. And just some of the capabilities of this stuff is really incredible, where you can, in fact, use just your voice to do pretty much everything on your Mac. So these tools can mean quite a bit to the people who really, really need them. So it's a pleasure for me, even though I'm not personally, although I do have tendinitis and a few other little things. It's just a pleasure for me to get to create that kind of content that is so meaningful, again, to the people who need it.
Well, I want to thank you for saying that it was, the content that really drew you, because the people who need it really need it. And my channel is the same way. I just want to give people the stuff that they really need. I'm not going for, it'd be nice to have explosive growth so that people find me first before they find misinformation about repetitive strain injury. That's sort of my goal. But people really need this stuff. And so I'm a great believer in giving people what they really need to learn. So do you want me to bring up any of your slides, David, or are you just going to?
I can just kind of do it live. It's easy. It's easier for me. So welcome to my desktop. By the way, in case you're curious about the video background, this is my video that came out 4 minutes ago as of right now. There's a new app where you can create a video wallpaper on your Mac. That tutorial of mine just came out. So let's talk about some of these settings to help you basically not need to click as much. I'm going to start with some of the more simple ones, and I'm going to get up to the big one. So one of the most simple tricks that I really like to teach people is there's this feature that is, if you go into system settings, you can also do this, by the way, on the iPhone, and you go into keyboard, there's this feature here called text replacements. And basically the way that text replacements works is it allows you to type in one thing and then it replaces it with something else. So it could be that you need to type in an email address repetitively, okay? You can make it so you type one key maybe 3 times and then it replaces it with that whole sentence. It could be other things, like, for example, if you're in the kind of job where you have to constantly give instructions to other people. Again, that text replacement feature is really, really super handy. I have a bunch of creative ways that I use it, but that's just kind of the general. The other, of course, is Siri. Everyone's known about Siri. You can use Siri for so many different things these days, including things like composing emails and text messages, launching applications. Of course, there's dictation, which is technically separate from Siri, but also a very, very powerful feature. So let's talk about now the big accessibility feature. Okay, so the big one that I wanted to focus on today with Deborah is if you go into accessibility options, there's this feature here called voice control. And when I enable this, I'm going to turn it on right now. Hopefully this won't get too confusing because I may have to switch it off occasionally. You'll notice at the bottom right corner of my screen, there's now this microphone that's listening to me. So I'm going to sleep it right now just so that it doesn't disturb everything. But when you use voice control, there's different ways that you can navigate. So if you look right here, it says overlay. And right now it's on item numbers. If I wake it up, you'll see that next to everything, there is now a number. So the way that I would navigate is, let's say I want to, let's see here. Let's say I want to click over to display options. Okay, watch this. Click 47. You know what? It may not work while because it's using my microphone right now for this, to be able to do this call with you.
Yeah,
This
but
is
I
where
think we get the idea that you
you
say
get
the number.
you get the concept, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The other option that's good to know about is if you don't like that, you can go with a numbered grid. And when you turn that on, see, I don't think it's going to,
There it
okay, it
is.
did do it. So we put a grid over the entire screen. And so what I would now do is I'd probably do one of two things. If I say click followed by the number, it's going to click into that zone. But like, let's say I'm trying to click into a menu item over here. If I just say 14, it'll then take that one box and it'll divide it up into smaller numbers. So I can give two different numerical commands and tell it exactly where to click. So between this and the dictation feature, it's really incredible how much you can do.
You don't have to use your mouse, which is the worst. It's the most injurious tool, and it's so inaccurate. This is right where you want to go.
Exactly, exactly. So, I mean, and what's beautiful is that that's built right into the guts of the Mac. You don't need special software for that. And that feature's been out for more than a few years now. So, even if you don't have the latest and greatest Apple computer, if you ever get that horrible diagnosis of ALS, or if you just frankly need to use your hands less, it's really good to know that there are tools out there to allow you to take the strain off of your hands or potentially not even use them at all.
Now, I have a question. I have a lot of people who are coders, and it's just very hard for them because there's so much hand activity involved. So could they create a sort of macros? That's an old-fashioned word for, saying one thing and having it do all of this other stuff. You say one word and the lawyer gets this whole paragraph on in witness whereof blah, blah, blah. Do you think that this accessibility program will help people who do coding?
Well, I think the tool that is going to play an even bigger role is when you add things like Chat GPT to something like this. I mean, coders are able to code at an insane speed by using tools like ChatGPT. And so you want to talk about using your hands less, well, that's going to cut down the operation quite a bit.
David, do you
I
have a video about using Chat GPT for coders that we can send people to?
So my audience is not typically into coding. That's not my crowd. But the thing is that I mean, let me just give you an example. Okay. I launched ChatGPT and I told it like, okay, can you create a Google Chrome extension? And I kind of just gave some very vague descriptions. And it did it. It wrote the code. Did it probably need a little bit of patching here and there? Yeah, probably. But the point is I just gave it a description of what I was trying to achieve, and it did it all for me. So, I mean, I'm not saying that code is going to be a thing of the past, but like, remember back in the 80s when it was all about MS-DOS? And like, yeah, then that went away. You didn't need it anymore. So I think this stuff is going to get so intelligent to the point where the number of people who actually need to know how to code is going to be so minimal. Because this is the thing, you don't need to know how to code. You just need to know how to use ChatGPT and how to communicate it correctly to get good results. So I think you combine this stuff with AI and the possibilities are endless.
Well, anything that helps people use their hands less is a gift. I did have a question for you if
Sure.
you're up for it. Please ask the voice control expert why it often takes up a lot of CPU resources and gets clunky and has to be restarted. I find it to be very glitchy and often competes with default Macintosh running processes in the background. Is there any way to fix this limitation that you know of? It only works well for 15 or 20 minutes, and then I have to reboot it or wait for the other system processes to stop writing in the activity monitor.
Yeah, that's a great question. So if I had the ability to have a conversation with this person, what I would advise them is this. When different technologies come out, sometimes it's a little step, sometimes it's a big leap. And when Apple came out with the Apple Silicon chips, that was a giant leap. I do a lot of private tech work, so I get to learn how much energy, how much processing, all of this stuff takes up. And if you're still on one of the Apple computers that has an Intel chip in it, meaning you go Apple icon about this Mac and it says the word Intel, it's a really good time to consider upgrading to a newer machine because these newer ones are so much more powerful. I mean, it's very difficult for me to even explain the difference. I mean, here's just one example. I do a lot of helping people with their photos, organizing, deduplicating, merging multiple libraries together, that kind of thing. When I'm working with someone who's on an Intel machine, this process can take days, like your computer all day taking the time to run this one operation. On a M1 or newer, I can do that same operation in minutes. It's incredibly different. So, does it take up a lot of processing power? Yeah, it does. But, the newer computers that are out there have that capability. So if you're running into those limitations, I would say it's a really good time right now to consider upgrading. And you don't necessarily have to go top of the line. I mean, if you go, I was working with a client of mine yesterday. He thought he was going to be looking at, several $1,000s. I was like, no, get a Mac Mini, get your own monitor, and you're good to go. And that little thing has so much power, it's ridiculous. So if the person you're referring to is going through that, I would say it's probably a really good time to upgrade to a newer model.
So I have a question for you. You mentioned that this voice control also works for your phone. Would you
Hmm.
mind telling us a little bit about that, David?
Yeah, so I mean, it's very similar. There's an accessibility button that you can base a menu that you can have pop ups, so whether or not to enable it. And same deal where you can you can tell it exactly where to click. My tutorial that I created for my YouTube channel is very much primarily focused on the Mac. It doesn't really go into the iPhone so much, but it's they have done a really good job of making it pretty universal so that when you learn it for one device, you pretty much know how to use it on the other device. Um, I'm not as savvy with it on the phone as much as the Mac, just because I spent the entire tutorial focusing on that crowd. So
Yeah, but I think some of this stuff can be a little bit intuitive. So perhaps if people got familiar with using their computer, using voice control on their computer, they might intuitively know how to do it on their phone as well. I'm assuming there's something in settings that
they might.
where it says,
Yeah, no, I mean it's in the accessibility options on the phone.
yeah.
So similar location. The thing is that on the phone, it's for certain things, it can be a lot easier to use Siri for certain functions. Again, like creating messages, emails, that kind of thing. Um,
I have that turned off because I teach and I
mm,
don't want to be interrupted.
mm.
So I don't know if Siri knows when you're doing something else and not to interrupt you or not to listen. I don't know. I haven't really used it that well.
Well, there's different ways to trigger Siri. So for people who run into the situation where she's constantly interrupting you, constantly, you say the word seriously and it goes, yes, you know, trust me, happens to me all the time. I finally, this is exactly what I do. Okay. On my devices, you can make it so that it doesn't listen. You can make it so that you just press and hold the side button and that does the same action. So there's, if you run into problems with that, you can make it play a little bit better. And in the latest operating system that's yet to come out in the fall, which I already have, there's now an option so you don't have to say the word "hey" before Siri.
David, for those of you who are watching this live or who are in the replay, has a fabulous cheat sheet for voice control, and you can get it by going. What is your
So if you
website?
so if you go to my website, techtalkamerica.com, no, not TikTok, that's what autocorrect changes it to. And by the way, I came out with that name first, so yeah. They're doing fine though. Techtalkamerica.com, go to the PDF page. There's only 6 PDFs there, and one of them says voice control. It's about 3 pages long, and it's just for like I said, if you receive that horrible diagnosis, I want you to be able to have something that you can print out so that as you're going through the learning process of how to use this technology, you've got something there, sort of like a study guide. So that's not all of the commands, but it's the vast majority of the most important ones. So,
Let me see if I can get this up so people can take a look. I mean, there's a lot to work. Okay,
yeah.
Laura. Hi, Laura. Nice to see you. Um,
Uh, yeah, I saw her note. Repeat the website.
yeah,
Tech, like technology. Talk, like we're talking. America, cause America.com.
.com. And yeah, Laura, I've got the PDF. So if you have any trouble, you can get it from me. But go to his website because that'll take you to the YouTube channel. And he's got a really nice video on using voice control, and it's geared toward people with paralysis and other serious disabilities. So it just goes to show you how much you can do with your voice.
Yeah.
Um, and unfortunately, Catherine can't see this event. Clicking on the watch live link. Well, that's probably my fault. Sorry, but there will be a replay of this. And if David is willing and you have questions that you want me to ask him, I will forward these questions so you can drop them in the comments below, and maybe we can get David to send you in the right direction. And Laura said, yes, will this be archived for viewing later? Yes, Laura, it will be on my website in my videos. So don't worry, you'll be able to see everything all over again. And I just love this voice control thing. I mean, it tells you everything you really need to know. Wake up. That means, it's like using Dragon. You want the voice control's attention. Go to sleep. Show numbers. I mean, what a great thing. When you say show numbers, that does the grid, right? All over the.
Well, the grid is where it puts lines up, and there's one box for each box. Numbers is where it puts a number next to every single clickable item.
Okay. But isn't that a great thing? You just say the number. I mean, how.
It's great for certain applications. For others, where like when you're dealing with the web, it doesn't really work out that well. But this is the thing. It's nice to have. You really need those two different abilities to be able to navigate.
Yes, speaking of using this technology, I'd like to remind everybody that maintaining good posture is key for having a happy life.
Oh, yes.
So when you're using your computer, make sure that it's elevated so that you're not craning your neck, because the neck is the seat of most repetitive strain injuries. I mean, it's not just overusing the muscles and tendons and everything else, but it's the posture so that things can flow freely, so that you're not, choking off your brachial plexus, that the nerves that go from your neck under your collarbone down the arm. So when you're using these accessibility features, make sure that you maintain good posture and take breaks. I mean, I don't know about you, David, but it can be very fatiguing to talk all day. So, give it a rest. You need breaks from everything. Your vision, there's sort of a 20-20-20 rule. They do that for the vision, 20 minutes, 20 minute 2 minutes away and 20 seconds. I prefer longer breaks, actually, but you need breaks from everything. Your eyes need a break, your voice needs a break, your hands need a break. Get up and walk. The body was meant to move so that we're circulating the blood flow. And this is what keeps us healthy. And what keeps us unhealthy is sitting in front of computers all day. So even though
Mm.
this stuff is really wonderful, don't forget about how we get repetitive strain injury.
Hey Deborah, what's your? I realize that your guidance is going to be obviously use it less, but what are your thoughts in regards to different types of mice or a trackpad? Is one better than the other? Yes, I'm sure there's some that are worse than others. Is there any solution that's better than others?
There is no good mouse, in my professional opinion,
Hmm.
because instead of being able to use 10 fingers of both hands, if you have two hands, you're constantly overusing one digit, and people get more mouse injuries, and now they're getting phone injuries from texting with their thumbs. So
Hmm.
the thing that I like to do is, I mean, the best solution is to use the grid so that you can just say where you want the mouse to go instead of doing that. But a glide point with both hands and also using a neutral position. So when I'm gliding, I don't know if you can see this, my hands are sort of in a semi handshake position, so I'm not fully pronated. That takes the heat off the ulnar nerve. So that's going to protect the nerve that runs around the elbow, that
Hmm.
nourishes the pinky finger and this side of the ring finger. So you want to protect your nerves, um, because it can really be a, a bad problem. So
Hmm.
basically, using both hands equally is helpful. You're also doing good brain training on a glide point, is what I would recommend. But there's just so much wrong with computers. I mean, they have the glide point and then you've got to reach. So now you've got a shoulder injury because you're reaching and you're statically loading. Static loading means holding still, holding. Anybody who does this for any length of time is going to feel fatigued. Well, think of what you're doing all day when you're reaching forward. It really strains the upper extremity.
Right.
It's best if your shoulders are nice and open and your arms are in a neutral handshake position, and just bending the elbows and pronating the palms, that means turning them over, will give you an injury. I mean, it can give you an injury. So this is not just the very tools that we use kind of set us up for injury.
See, we
Well,
do need robots. We do need robots.
we need, yeah, we need robots, and we also need to use our bodies the way they're intended in a natural way, because the minute some other entity is dictating your movement, that's a red flag. I would not ever play one of those games where you're supposed to move the way something else is telling you how to move. I would never do that.
Hmm.
Too great an injury, too great risk for injury. So Laura says, um, room temperature water to hydrate, and she's saying also hum to warm up the vocal folds. And yes, there will be an archive for later on. So, so we've covered a lot here today. Um, I mean, there's just so much to do. But as I'm saying, if you want tutorials about using this technology, please go to David's YouTube channel, go to his website, Tech Talk America. If you want
Hmm.
information on your hand health and repetitive strain injury, subscribe to my channel, um, because that's what I do. So, we just try to do, you know, what's stay in our own lane. Um, but I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to add, David? Do you think this is?
Yeah, no, I hope this is helpful to people out there. I think
Oh,
the only other thing I would say is, so the other thing that I do when I'm not making video content is I do a lot of this private one-on-one. Sometimes I work with couples, sometimes I work with small businesses, always through Zoom. I've come to refer to this process as tech therapy. And when we're doing what we do, that's a workflow. Okay, you have a task that you need to do. The way that you get there, that's a workflow. One of the things that I like to help people with is I like to help them refine certain workflows so that they're simpler. So if you've got something in your work that you do that is very repetitive, it might be worth your time to, hey, let's spend an hour together. Let me kind of go through what your flow is, and let's see if there is a way to use this technology so that you are on your computer less, you're clicking less, you're typing less. Let's try to use some of these tools to take that off of you. So if you would ever like to work with me one-on-one, you just go to my website, techtalkamerica.com. There's a page there called Tech Therapy, and that's it.
Yes, and I'll put the details below so you can you can see it spelled out, and I will put a link in the details below so that and I really recommend that you watch David's video. What was the title of that video? It was all about voice control or something like that,
It's
right?
yeah, I think I want to say it's all about voice control. The only other thing, let me just throw out there, quick promo. So the video that I'm editing right now, this will be out next week. Uh, Different disability, but hey, might be relevant to the crowd. I think the name of the video is going to be called "Maximize Your Mac," and it's going to be for anyone out there who is vision impaired. It's how to make everything a little bit bigger, and we're going to cover the whole spectrum. We're going to go from, I just need my email to be a little bit more legible, to I have a severe disability, MS, something like that, and I need to be able to dramatically increase the font of things. So we're going to cover all of that in the video, and it's only like 5 minutes long. So
I'm so glad you brought that up, and I'm glad you're doing that because vision, I think 80% of computer users have vision problems. And part of it is, glare or difficulty viewing. So if they can enlarge the font, make it easier on their eyes, that
yeah,
can be really helpful because, you can also get headaches from not being able to view the screen properly. And the list of ailments just goes on and on. So thank you for suggesting that. Thank you for doing that video. I'm going to
hey,
watch.
my pleasure.
And
My pleasure.
and I want to thank you so much for coming to our channel. And we'll be doing more live streams. I've got some great ideas for some that are coming up for people who are regular viewers or people who are just interested in repetitive strain injury. But in the meantime, I'd really like to thank David Cox for joining us. And I hope to see you all next time.
Thanks for having me, Deborah. It's been a pleasure.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.